Maryland approves its first LGBTQ EIEIO studies course. Given the shockingly low literacy rates in cities like Baltimore, it better come with a whole lot of picture books. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is The Dr. Duke Show. Hello everyone, and welcome to The Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today we start with a new LGBTQ studies course just approved for high school students in Maryland, the first of its kind in the state. And this is just really frustrating. So if you've had one American history course, now you can opt out of more American history and take this, right? And what is this course but a whole bunch of conjecture and lies? Look, the fact is that up until recently, the last couple hundred years, people didn't admit to being gay. The word gay didn't exist. Homosexual marriage was not something gay people actually aspired to. The whole thing is a complete cultural shift. And so what you're going to do to fill this class is you're going to have to go back through time and out people. Da Vinci and Michelangelo never got married. They must be gay. Emily Dickinson.
Oh, she for sure.
She lived by herself, lesbian.
With cats.
Right?
With
Abraham
cats.
Lincoln once shared a bed in an inn with another man. He's gay.
You know it.
It's not a history course. It's not a serious course. What it is let's make you feel good for being gay. And again, when you think about the degree to which the war on heteronormativity is attacking cisgendered people, maybe you need a course on how to feel good if you're not gay.
So this course is actually going to be a semester-long LGBTQ plus studies. That's what it's going to be called. Woo! And it's going to start next spring, and it's going to be in Montgomery County, Maryland. And you can sign up for it because the Board of Education said, yeah, okay, we're going to allow this. And what they're going to do is explore LGBTQ identity, history, and culture. It's an elective course that will be open to juniors and seniors who have taken American history.
American history course.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. You see what they've done? They've turned college into grade school. Mm-hmm. They've turned literally turned university education into high school stuff. And what are they doing in high school? They're exporting these stupid gender identity courses. What happened to the days when high school was a precursor for college? When high school was supposed to give you basic knowledge of the important things. And hint, the history and culture of LGBTQ kids is not worthy of high school study. That's the kind of thing you do when you graduate from high school, you go to college, and you major in something utterly pointless like gender studies or women's studies, then you get courses like that. But no, the geniuses who run the high schools now have decided we're going to teach these kind of radically specified, completely divorced from reality hyphen studies courses. We're going to teach them now to high school kids at the expense, of American history. Because if you were to study real American history, you certainly in the third year of that could talk about how gay and gender rights and homosexual rights and women's rights for the entirety of American history. You can talk about the burgeoning need for African-American civil rights, right? No, that's not enough. We can't study the rights of individuals and the collective history of the country. We've got to carve out these special cutaways for LGBTQ people. Why? Because they're the flavor of the month.
Literally the flavor of the month. And the thing I question, because, I love my history, how is it that they are going to actually, identify and get the historical, outing in the culture? How are they going to do that without having to actually go back and look at real documents, which
there
they
are
won't?
none.
I know.
No.
But what are they? In a way, my optimism thinks, well, maybe that means they're going to start reading diary entries or letters that were sent between various politicians or something.
What the gayness or straightness of
it has nothing to do with
nothing.
Nothing. It has
but now it does.
Nothing.
In fact, it doesn't matter. See, we've flipped it, right?
It's completely flipped.
Right. It used to be it didn't matter what somebody's sexuality is. That doesn't necessarily change the artist. It doesn't change the writer. It doesn't change your architectural ability. It doesn't change your math skills. Now, on the other hand, we have rejected reality in the favor of subjectivity. Fact-based education, historical knowledge, sociological truth, all that's gone. And what we have now is merely the education of perception.
Yeah, because now that the fact that they're searching
That's right.
into whatever it is they maybe for sexuality purposes, instead of, it used to be maybe be like, oh, and he happened to be gay. Okay, whatever, move on. Now it's, Oh, and he happened to write the Declaration of Independence. Oh, wow, that's fascinating.
No, it's the Declaration of Independence doesn't matter unless you're gay.
Oh yeah, well they're going to out Thomas Jefferson,
right.
I'm sure.
And the
they're
point
going to out everyone. They're going to
that-
say everyone.
Yes, they will. You're exactly
Even
right.
though
They
they're
are
not.
not teaching the history of these
Correct.
people. They are inventing it. They are making it up on the fly, right? They are completely constructing it out of nothing.
Well, because if we're going to talk about Jefferson and Adams were friends later in life, and they wrote letters to each other. So,
Well, and it was
clearly.
it was a gay love, murder, suicide. They died
That's
on the
what
same
I'm saying,
day.
day.
Yeah, I mean, this
So
is what
that's
they're going to
exactly.
Either you're gonna elevate nobodies to historicals, people like Harvey Milk, who was a pederast and a child abuser.
True.
You're gonna take people like that
Truth.
and elevate them to serious positions, which we've already done. Or you're going to have to find real accomplishment in the past and then project gayness or transness on those people. Either that, or it's gonna be a course on RuPaul.
Ooh, well, I'm sure RuPaul's part of culture and history. Anyway, Nate Tinbite, who's the board's student member, they actually have a student member on their board, which, okay, I guess that's what we're doing now, said the addition of the course is much needed in our district. And he said he believed it to be one of the first schools in the nation to offer it. So go Nate. He's happy.
We just sacrificed on the altar of civics and history and real knowledge another pretend course.
And a school board member also said she's so proud of the community. I feel like we've come so far in having an open conversation for our students to have the right to take the social studies elective in recognition of the times we live in. But I don't want to ever let go of the civil rights implications for our
So,
LGBTQ
in other words, you are
students.
not a teacher. You're a sociologist pushing a certain kind of lifestyle on people. That's all you're doing. Good. Congratulations. Mom and Dad, you're paying a lot of money to get non-education courses like this and the preening arrogance that goes with it.
All right, we're going to move on to New York City, where kids are basically smarter than their teachers, at least when it comes to the art of manipulation. The New York Post is reporting that some mischievous kids are manipulating, posting clips of their teachers' remote learning lessons on social media, and so it's making the educators not want to put anything of these video classes up. And several sources have told the Post this. There are a lot of us who aren't comfortable with it, a Bronx middle school teacher said. You never know where your face is going to end up right now. And an 8th grade instructor at the Bronx school warned colleagues that kids, especially in the older grades, were posting lesson footage on sites like Snapchat and sometimes adding profane captions or inappropriate filters. Now, here's the thing. Kids were doing this when they were in the public school with their little cell phones, doing a little Snapchat. I've seen it many a time done to me. If I ever saw it, I would just start to pose.
Yeah, the whole thing is kind of silly, but it does show more initiative from the students than
Yes,
you
it
get from the
does.
teachers, right?
This is true.
I mean, the students are more creative. These kids aren't learning anything. They weren't learning anything in the public schools. They're not learning. They're even learning less at home. And so good on them. If they're going to be exposed to an unprepared public school system, trying to teach them unprepared online classes, good, have some fun with it. And teachers, if there's any group in the country that ought to have a sense of humor about themselves, it should be you.
Well, and the thing is, if you're a teacher and if you're a good teacher, the kids are engaged.
Right.
If you're what a majority of our teachers are, just there to facilitate, the kids are bored, the kids only know what to do with the devices around them. And since every student almost across the nation has a device, their cell phone that is, that's all they do. They spend their time on that, so they're going to be very good at being able to manipulate whatever they want using that device. But you have to convince them, be engaging enough to get them to put the cell phone away and to focus on what you're doing. That's what a good teacher does.
Well, there are two kinds of teachers. There are the kind of teachers that kids like to mock, and the kind of teachers kids like so much that they want to tribute. And I don't think teachers understand the difference between those two, right?
Maybe.
What you and I would consider disrespectful, if a kid likes you, that's an honor from
You might
them.
be the cool teacher.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. To caption you on what are captioning sites? Give me an example.
Oh my goodness, Snapchat.
There
That's
you
what
go.
they put it on the picture with, or Instagram or Facebook.
That, even if it's a little bit racy, is generally, if they like you, it's a good thing for them. It's how they communicate to each other.
This is true.
But it just goes to show you how we had a story about this a couple of weeks ago. How Cornell University was it Cornell? I believe it was Cornell, who warned faculty and students that they are under no circumstances allowed to share these lessons with the public. You are not allowed to. So you're not allowed to let anybody see what we do in these public schools. Well, Cornell's not a public school, but these are public schools. So the fact that the kids are actually, because of the distance learning and the fact that it's all computerized, they actually have a chance to be a little bit more proactive in their commentary, which is a good thing.
Well, and the thing to question, this is something to, as the years go on, to question whether or not, just like with parents, are you their friend or their teacher? Like, are you the students? Because the way the kids communicate, the way you communicate with them is how hopefully they would communicate back to you. So if you show I'm your friend, Snapchat each other, that's what they're going to do. So they're going to be more inclined to do these manipulations. And according to a Harlem middle school teachers, they said they interact with us now the same way they do with their friends. The staffer said teachers are routinely monitored online by their students. They see us on Twitter, on Instagram. The student-teacher relationship has totally changed, especially in the last 5 years or so. And a Bronx staffer said her students routinely scroll through dating apps like Tinder to see if they can spot their instructors and their profiles. I remember the big thing for us, and this was when I was in elementary school, to be at the mall and then, oh my gosh, you saw your teacher and it was the weekend. You were like, oh my gosh, guess who I saw? I saw Mrs. So-and-so at Sam Goody's store the other weekend. It was Mrs. Honold, by the way. But I saw her and she, oh my God, she wasn't wearing her dress and she was buying a CD. I thought it was the coolest.
Yeah, and
that's what it used to be. Now it's more Tinder.
This didn't just start with COVID,
yeah, I know.
Right? As with everything else in our culture, our relationship to children has to be informal. It has to be playful. It can't be serious. It's the parent who would rather be the friend than a parent.
Exactly.
Quite frankly, we don't need you, public school teachers, to be parents, which is what you're trying to be. You're being forced to be, even if you want to or not. We don't need you to be sociologists. You're not trained for it. Stay the hell away from our kids psychologically. You don't know the first thing about it. But these are the things, right, that we insist teachers be. And your ability to actually teach math if you're a math teacher, we don't worry about that. Oh, you're semi-literate yourself when you're teaching English? No biggie. As long as you have that relationship with the kids, right? We can't trust the parents to be parents, so you'll be parents and no one will educate the kids.
Moving right along here, we're in Georgia, where the University System of Georgia Board of Regents announced that students cannot, I repeat, cannot have the option to move to a pass-fail despite student and parent requests, because the parents of college students need to request that my poor baby needs to be a pass-fail. Instead, these students and parents apparently now are being told to reach higher. The system sent out a statement saying, "We are confident our students will rise to the challenge, and the USG will do everything in its power to help them do so. In times of adversity, we should reach higher, not lower. Maintaining high academic standards is critical to the success of the USG students now and in the future. Continuing letter grading for the final few weeks of the semester will allow faculty to assess the performance of students in the same manner as they always have."
Hallelujah. I mean, this is where Mike will insert the rock giving the slow clap, right? The slow clap. That will be our favorite meme for issues. Every now and then we do a positive story. And Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson will be clapping for it, and there he is. You can see him clapping right now. The point being that the schools are actually telling the kids, look, in this time of crisis, when you can't go swimming, you're not going to be able to play sports, your ballet dance classes are canceled, soccer matches aren't being held, when the band no longer meets, you're going to be home more. You're going to be stuck at home. Why in the world shouldn't you double down your educational efforts, right? Everything has been stripped from you, but the books you can read and the educational TV you can watch, right? This ridiculous argument that when things go bad for students, when students aren't allowed to play sports and they're not allowed to go partying at the bars, and where students can't go on spring break and they're not allowed, this is exactly what a student should be wishing for.
Yes.
There was a time in Western culture where kids would have prayed for this kind of shutdown so they could spend more time with their books. Now, I got news for you. If you were to rank the top 10 things regarding school in this country, we should do a survey like this. give them 10 things, right, of importance in their life, right? School, friends, technology, all that stuff. Where do you think their educations would rank? I would bet you they'd rank in the very bottom, the last 2 or 3 items.
If they're being honest.
If they're being honest, right? And this, of course, is the fault of us, the parents, the moms and dads in our culture. We've made them believe that education is completely subjective, that simply going to school transfers some kind of educational value, that simply showing up at the public schools means they're getting an education when you know they're not. You've had them home with you for how long now? You know they're not learning anything. Right? And so at some point, to be a parent means take away the oboe, take away the cell phone, take away the ballet slippers, take away the soccer cleats, and tell those kids, you know what? The couple years you're going to spend playing JV soccer versus the rest of your intellectual life, we're not going to be your friends, we're not going to be your Instagram buddies, we're going to be your parents. We're going to put that stuff away in the hopes that you might actually get something out of all of this. And congratulations to Georgia for saying, aim higher. We're not going to, it's exactly right. We shouldn't be giving you pass fails. We shouldn't be taking away final exams. We shouldn't be coddling you. We should be telling you this is a perfect opportunity to give you more work.
Well, instead, more than 10,000 students and maybe parents and maybe outsiders, who knows, signed a petition to allow for the pass-fail option. The student governments of the University of Georgia, Georgia State University, and Georgia Tech have passed resolutions calling for the regents to allow an opt-in. And students collected more than 2,000 stories from students who say they struggled with the chaos of spring semester 2020. Now, to your point, why would they not just use that energy to read a book? They obviously, they could have easily just gone home, done their studies, passed their classes, gotten their A's, and then all summer long could whine about the fact that they had to do some work.
And you know why? Because they spend so little time on their actual studies where they're in school.
Exactly.
This is what happens. When they're at school, they're perpetually distracted, right?
Yes.
And they're
Correct.
doing all these other things. And so the amount of time your college kids spend on their college work is staggeringly low. I'm betting they're not spending more than 15% of their week on their college work. They're not outside a classroom. They're doing very little. And so now they're put in a situation at home where they're used to doing next to nothing, and there's nothing else to do. And so they're freaking out. The idea that they would go ahead and accelerate their grades, accelerate their work, that's not a possibility. They're just depressed because they gave themselves reasons to be ignorant.
Oh, of course,
I'm highly involved in this stuff. Now there are no excuses, and they're still choosing ignorance. They're demanding ignorance from their schools.
It's time for some real education. Today on Instant Classic, Dutch painter Herman Steenwijk was born in China about the year 1612. He was the brother of Pieter Steenwijk, also a still life painter, whose father, Evert, sent them to learn painting from their uncle David Bailey in Leiden. Bailey influenced Steenwijk to paint his first work titled Vanitas. Steenwijk was active as a painter in Leiden between 1628 and 1633, best known for his visual sermon in the painting, An Allegory of the Vanities of Human Life. Steenwijk died in 1656.
And this is the picture, the allegory of the vanities of human life. Now, of course, this is a still life painting, and all still life painting is contemplative. One of the saddest things about living in a contemporary technological age is we've lost the ability to contemplate, right? And we're trying to bring it back. We're trying to import things like meditation from Eastern culture to try to get us back, but it's not working really well. We are a fidgety, ADD-addled, hyper, completely unable to sit still couple of generations here who have 5 seconds. I mean, literally, you watch how angry your kids get. Maybe you too, if you're on your cell phone all the time. How crazy does it drive you if it takes 15 seconds for something to upload?
Whew.
I mean, you freak out. Contemplativity is beautiful, and still life is the painting version of contemplative. Now go to the picture. All still lives ask you to contemplate the meaning and the vanity of life, the fleetingness, the transience of life, how quickly life goes. And you have this beautiful table. Everything seems random, but everything is carefully placed for a reason. First, it's impossible not to notice that the one ray of light that beams into the room, and you can see the dust mites. How beautifully is that painted? You can almost see the dust mites floating in that beam. It comes full bore on the skull. Because all of those things that surround the skull are human endeavors that we try to fill our time with. Notice that the mouth of the skull rests directly on a flute, right? Almost as if it's a skeletal Hamlet, right? That's a great scene in Hamlet when he was talking about the flute player. You've got the skull of Yorick there and the flute. So you've got a couple of musical instruments. You can see a horn to the right. You've got an open pocket watch, time's ticking away. Music and the books, literature, that represents the pleasures of life, right? And think about music, too. These were people who could sit through hours and hours of church music. By the time you got to the age of the great composers, Beethoven, in the 18th century, you were sitting through 3 and 4 hour concerts. Now you can barely get through one song before you fast forward to the next one. So you've got the music and the books that suggest contemplativity, that suggest pleasure and how fleeting those things are. You've got the open stopwatch time. You've got the conch shell, and you've got the Japanese samurai sword, which suggest travel and suggest wealth and opulence, the exotic, how those things, that beautiful little flush of pink satin on the handkerchief that runs through the back of the picture. You've got books there. You've got jugs. You've got also inverted. This is really kind of an interesting take. Many still lifes focus on rotting fruit. Gorgeous baskets of fruit. But if you look at them really carefully, you'll see that peach has a wormhole in it. And those grapes are starting to turn, right? And you think about it, if you keep fruit out, how quickly do the little tsetse flies, the little fruit flies, start hovering around the food. Here, the basket of fruit has been overturned altogether, right? It's all the fruit has gone bad and it's been thrown out. And you can see the lamp there with a little puff of smoke. Somebody has just blown out the lamp. Out, brief candle. Life is but a walking shadow, said Shakespeare. That's it. Steenwick's painting here is really quite gorgeous. If we have the ability and the patience to contemplate, it would be a lot better for all of us.
All right, as always, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And if you have a question for our Friday Q&A, visit freedomproject.com/askduke or send us a message on social media. And as a reminder, Freedom Project Academy's live online school is enrolling new students for the upcoming school year. Request your free packet at freedomforschool.com. That's freedom, F-O-R, school.com. Now, let's wrap things up with our fun fact of the day. Kleenex was actually first used in gas masks. I decided to do, with the crying Georgia students, a Kleenex fun fact. So Kimberly Clark first developed crepe paper that was used during World War I as a filter for gas masks. Then in the 1920s, they made it that crepe paper into Kotex for, women's and now men's periods. And then they redid it into Kleenex. So now all the Kleenex for the Georgia students.
All I have to say is that fun fact blows. And that's going to do it for us this show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, don't buy the ones with the gooey stuff in it. It's like you've already blown your nose before you use them.